In a typical morning at a Korean seaside village, fishermen head out to sea, catch fish, and deliver their haul to shops and fish restaurants. Among the catch is a young mackerel, inadvertently caught in the net. Later, the fresh catch, including the mackerel, finds its way to a coastal restaurant where they are placed in an aquarium. As evening falls, visitors gather at the restaurant, and one family orders a flounder, which is served while still alive. A curious boy in the group wonders about adding a big fish to the aquarium, but his question goes unanswered. Meanwhile, the owner of the restaurant decides to move the mackerel to a different aquarium with fewer fish. As new customers arrive, they contemplate their orders, desiring the taste of freshly caught seafood. The restaurant owner proudly asserts that all the fish were caught that very morning from the ocean. The mackerel, now in the new tank, desperately swims around, attempting to break free from the confines of the aquarium walls. The other fish in the tank cleverly pretend to be lifeless, hoping to avoid being served as dinner. As the customers enter the restaurant, a young greenling fish named Spotty excitedly informs its aquatic neighbors that the danger has passed, prompting the fish to swim freely in the aquarium. However, the owner emerges and captures one of the fish from the tank. Filled with horror, the new mackerel watches as a fish is cruelly stabbed in the head, then butchered and gutted, all while remaining alive. As the restaurant closes, customers and staff leave, but the mackerel continues to rush around the aquarium, smashing its head against the walls. Spotty tries to reason with the distressed mackerel, explaining that the invisible wall cannot be broken. However, the mackerel refuses to listen and becomes the object of contempt for the other fish. Among the other fish in the aquarium are Mr. Seabass, who appears sleepy, Miss Snapper, a snapper fish, Brim, a striped beak fish, and Joldum, a conger eel. They all consider Spotty a naive kid and often mock him by biting his tail. But now, their focus turns to the mackerel. Joldum calls everyone to line up as the old flounder emerges from under the lattice at the bottom of the aquarium. The rest of the fish treat the old flounder with great respect and refer to him as the master. Joldum informs the master about the mackerel's arrival and its unfamiliarity with the new rules. In an attempt to reason with the mackerel, the master strikes it hard. The mackerel loses consciousness but hears the master's words before that: "Play dead when people look at you." In the mackerel's dream, it finds itself back in the vast sea, freely enjoying life. It hopes that entering the aquarium was merely a nightmarish vision that will fade with the morning light. People appear as terrifying monsters to the mackerel, imprisoning fish in cages with invisible walls and subjecting them to brutal treatment. As morning dawns, the mackerel regains consciousness, facing the horrifying reality once again. Soon, a restaurant worker tosses a half-dead fish into the aquarium. The mackerel's neighbors, filled with appetite, prepare for a delicious lunch. The pleading fish is pushed by Joldum towards the net, where the master hides during the day. With a swift motion, the master drags the fish into his lair and later pushes it back with gouged eyes. The other fish eagerly pounce on the dead fish, savoring the meal, while the mackerel, in shock, refrains from touching the meat, preoccupied with her own fate. The fish was thrown into the aquarium from above, leaving the lid open, and the mackerel seizes the opportunity to jump out. Flopping to the ground, she struggles to reach the water, attempting to escape her confined life. However, her attempt fails, and she faints without water, halting halfway to the sea. Just then, a worker from the restaurant notices her and returns the mackerel to the aquarium. The other fish are puzzled by her actions and cannot comprehend why she would want to leave the aquarium. They give her the name Paddock, meaning slap slap, as a nod to her floundering on the ground. Each night, the master, Old Flounder, poses riddles about life in the ocean to the other fish. However, the truth is that the master falsely claims to come from the ocean, when, in reality, he was raised on a fish farm, like all the other fish, except for the Paddock mackerel. The one who solves the riddle gains the right to bite off a piece of the loser's tail. As expected, the loser is usually Spotty, and the fish enjoy this game. Tonight, the master asks how many limbs a starfish has. Paddock confidently replies that starfish have 5 limbs, having seen them multiple times. However, Brim suggests that starfish have 50 limbs, and Spotty goes even higher with 51. The master declares that the correct answer is 50, leaving Paddock indignant. She questions why they ask riddles with no definite answers. According to the master, Paddock lost the riddle, and the other fish pounce on her, attempting to punish her, but she manages to escape. The following day, Brim remains angry and constantly targets Paddock. Spotty comes to her rescue, and they become friends. Spotty asks why Paddock jumped out of the aquarium, and she explains her longing to return home to the sea. Spotty finds it hard to believe that Paddock used to live in the ocean. Paddock teaches Spotty how to listen carefully and distinguish the sound of the sea among other noises. The master overhears their conversation and recalls how he used to live in the aquarium with his beloved, who was from the ocean. She taught him to listen to the sounds of the sea. His lover's tragic fate remains the most terrible memory for the old flounder. Paddock shares with Spotty that she can speak the languages of many sea creatures, including communicating with king crabs. She recounts her adventures in the ocean and the places she dreams of visiting. Spotty becomes excited by her stories. However, the master tries to instill fear in the fish, warning them that they wouldn't survive in the ocean due to predators. Paddock is surprised by this intimidation tactic. The authority of the master begins to wane in the eyes of the other fish. At night, the old flounder angrily attacks Paddock, leading to a fight during which the master inadvertently reveals that he grew up on a fish farm. After the battle, he hides in his lair, bleeding. Now accustomed to nightly riddles, the fish demand one from Paddock as the only marine inhabitant. Joldom, displaying arrogance and mockery, challenges Paddock to come up with a riddle to distract them from their imminent death. Paddock asks, "How do we all get out of the aquarium?" Spotty believes that every being has a soul that is naturally free, suggesting they can break out by becoming souls. Brim thinks they need to die first to escape, and the master claims they have been dead since entering the tank, leaving Spotty unfazed. Brim suggests breaking the invisible wall, but the others fear it would lead to their deaths. Ms. Snapper proposes waiting for heavy rain to raise the water level and wash away the aquarium, while Mr. Seabase suggests enlisting the king crabs to break the glass. Paddock promises to speak to the crabs and believes in the success of the idea, though the other fish are skeptical. Paddock questions why they do not believe in anything or think for themselves, challenging the master's supposed greatness. The other fish angrily attack Paddock for suggesting such radical ideas. However, the master intervenes, asserting that the fish in the aquarium are already dead, dampening any hope of freedom. Paddock remains the only one to disagree. The following morning, the restaurant workers move the fish into a bowl and clean the tank. Spotty explains that people have forgotten about the master since he hides in his lair. Paddock realizes this is the perfect opportunity to escape, as they are no longer surrounded by invisible walls. She jumps out of the basin and hurriedly flounders towards the sea. Spotty follows her. However, a car arrives at the restaurant and visitors step out. The employees inform them that the restaurant is closed. An impatient visitor steps on Spotty's tail, alerting the owner to the escape attempt. Paddock reaches the edge of the pier but realizes Spotty is unable to keep up due to the visitor's interference, so she decides to stay with him and both are returned to the aquarium. Later that evening, the restaurant attracts many visitors. A curious boy notices the fish catching nets, but his mother calls him for dinner and he leaves. Meanwhile, a restaurant worker releases a half-dead fish into Paddock's aquarium. Spotty invites Paddock to eat with him, but she refuses to eat after the old flounder. The master takes the half-dead fish to his lair and communicates with it. The fish reveals its impending death due to damaged gills and mocks the master for his existence in a secret lair, considering him just as dead. The master kills the fish but doesn't eat it, and the other fish start to eat. Paddock finds it unpleasant to watch and leaves the aquarium, jumping into the crab tank, hoping to convince them to break the walls. However, the crabs hurt her instead. The curious boy finds Paddock and takes her to the clownfish tank, where she recovers and eats the clownfish. In another aquarium, the fish think Paddock is dead, but Spotty still believes she's alive and decides to talk to the crabs himself. The master tries to stop Spotty, calling him a fool, and orders the fish to forget everything Paddock said. However, Spotty is determined to speak with the crabs and jumps out of the aquarium to reach them. Meanwhile, Paddock is wallowing in the small aquarium, wanting to reach the last clownfish. She accidentally injures herself when a sword breaks off from a decorative knight statuette and sticks into her body. As Paddock loses consciousness, she imagines a conversation with Spotty. He asks if he can go to the sea even though he has never lived there before. Paddock explains to Spotty that all fish actually come from the sea, and they have just forgotten about it. She believes that they can escape together and live freely in the ocean. However, in reality, Spotty's unconscious body is returned to the original aquarium, and Joldom intends to eat him. The master intervenes, protecting Spotty from Joldom. People notice Paddock is missing and return her to her tank. Seeing Spotty motionless, Paddock mistakenly believes the master killed him and starts chasing him around the aquarium. A restaurant worker prepares to cut and cook the old flounder, but the diners change their order to mackerel. The cook releases the master back into the aquarium, surprising the other fish. The master swims up to Paddock, and she apologizes for misunderstanding him. They feel a deep connection and unity of souls, breaking through fears and barriers to true friendship. Eventually, Paddock is taken out of the tank and cut up, and the living mackerel is mocked by a visitor who inserts a cigarette into its mouth. The master no longer wants to pretend to be dead, he only cares about his dying friend Spotty. The following morning, the lids are removed from the aquariums, and the old flounder seizes the opportunity to escape. He rushes towards the sea, but his strength wanes, and he struggles to move. Paddock's encouraging voice urges him on, and he manages to reach the edge of the pier. However, a restaurant worker catches up with him and tries to take him back to the aquarium. In a final act of defiance, the master spits out a piece of the sword that had harmed Paddock, hitting the worker and escaping into the sea. His friends watch in amazement as the master finds his freedom. Back in the restaurant, life continues as usual, but the master is now finally free. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more interesting movies.